And welcome back to the Wellness Paradox podcast. I'm so grateful that you can join us on this journey towards greater human flourishing. As always, I'm your host, Michael Stack, an exercise physiologist by training and a health entrepreneur and a health educator by trade. And I'm fascinated by a phenomenon I call the wellness paradox. This paradox, as I view it, is the trust, interaction, and communication gap between fitness professionals and our medical community. This podcast is all about closing off that gap by disseminating the latest, most evidence-based, and most engaging information in the health sciences. And to do that in episode 82, I'd like to talk about a recent article that I wrote for Club Industry called The 5 Steps to Professionalizing the Fitness Industry. This article was very, very well received from all the feedback that I've gotten. And I want to unpack this conversation in our podcast today, because I think all of you, as our listeners, are really going to appreciate and view as instructive some of the things that I talk about in the article. But before we do that, we first have to establish the reason why a professionalization movement is so important in our industry. And that's where we're going to start. But before we even get to that, I have to mention and thank Club Industry for their willingness to publish a piece like this. I can tell you, when you read the article, it's certainly not a glowing endorsement that our industry is doing everything right now. In fact, if anything, it's a bit of a manifesto in terms of how we could be doing things better. And for Club Industry to be willing to be a disruptive force to push our industry to be better, to be more professional, because it can be, and most importantly, for the health of our nation, it needs to be. I applaud Club Industry for the courageous step to actually publish an article that holds us to a higher standard. And that's a lot of what this discussion is going to be around, holding us to a higher standard. And again, as I said, before we get there, we have to establish why this is so important. Why do things need to change? Well, I think on the broadest level possible, and you hear us talk about this a lot in the wellness paradox, we only serve 15 to 20% of the American public in our industry. It's the same 15 to 20% we've been serving since the birth of our industry. It has not changed. We are very good, and you've heard me say this before, at getting the fitter. And while that's a nice thing to do, and maybe it's even an admirable thing to do, it's not an impactful thing to do in terms of the public health of our nation, because those 15 to 20% that are fit, looking to get fitter, they're going to find ways to get fit. They always have, and they always will. But our opportunity as an industry to shift from being viewed as an entertainment-based commodity, like a casino, like a bar, and like all the other businesses we were lumped in with during COVID, if we're going to shift that perspective in the mind of lawmakers, in the minds of the public health community, in the minds of medical professionals, and in the minds of the American public, we absolutely must be viewed as a more professional stakeholder in the healthcare delivery system in our country. Flat out, bottom line, unequivocally, period, full stop. Like, that's what we have to do as an industry, and we have to be viewed as more professional if we're looking to do so. And we have mountains of evidence of the lack of professionalism in our industry that has led to a lack of engagement with the broader American consumer. Again, that 15 to 20% of the population is an indisputable number. It's held for decades in our industry, and clearly we're missing the boat on something. If we didn't have that as evidence enough, we certainly have been shut down as a health-based industry during the health crisis of our lifetime during COVID. You've heard me talk about the White House Conference on Hunger and Nutrition, where physical activity was talked about and where the physical activity sector was talked about, and our industry was not mentioned once at the conference or in their white paper. Just the examples abound of our industry's lack of engagement with the broader American public. And really what this boils down to on its most elemental level is that our industry lacks trust. We do not have trust with the broader American public. We do not have trust with our lawmakers, with our medical community, with our public health officials. And if we don't have trust, we don't have a relationship with those stakeholders. bottom line is every single relationship on this planet is based on trust. And our industry over the years has, in a lot of cases, only eroded trust with those stakeholders I just talked about. They haven't built trust. They haven't built equity. Now, that's a broad generalization, and there are amazing people in our industry that I meet all the time. A number of you who listen to this podcast, I was at the MFA conference recently, the Medical Fitness Association conference. People down there who are doing amazing things, who are incredibly professional, but unfortunately, over the decades, that has been the exception, not the rule, and we have to change that as an industry. I would say, with in no uncertain terms, that it is an existential threat to our industry if we do not change that. And here's why. Our population is only becoming less physically fit, less physically active, and less healthy over time. That 15 to 20% of the population that we're serving right now is, as a result of that, going to shrink and diminish over time. So our market share in the fit demographic is ever shrinking. We also know we're becoming older as a population. We have more people over the age of 45 than we do under the age of 45 right now. So we have to, looking strategically on the horizon, ask ourselves, how do we survive as an industry? Yes, COVID was an existential threat, and we figured it out, but we lost a third of our industry in the process. The bigger existential threat that we face is that we are viewed as an entertainment-based commodity, at least externally. And we have to change that perception. We have to create, not recreate. We have to create trust. We have to create equity with the broader American public, with our lawmakers, public health officials, and medical professionals. We have to do that. And the only way we are going to do that is undertake a very specific and, in my mind, dramatic professionalization effort in our industry. And we have to set a bar, a professional bar, as our standard, and we have to hold ourselves to that standard if we have any hope of really impacting public health in this country on any meaningful level, but also just from a pure economic perspective, if we hope to survive and thrive as an industry. I mean, I'm done with the idea of surviving as an industry after COVID. Like, yes, we survived, but there's a big difference between surviving and thriving. And I know that as an industry, we want more than that. And I know we are capable of more than that. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I see so many people in our industry, even people that maybe haven't thought of the idea of professionalization or thought of becoming part of the healthcare delivery system. I see people who are incredibly passionate and who want to help people and who want to do great things and who want to tackle big health problems. Yet they don't seem to understand the framework through which to do so. And that's what I want to talk about in these 5 steps from the article. Now, I'll link the article up on the show notes page, wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 82. But I want to go through the 5 steps that I mentioned in the article very briefly and hopefully get you to start to wrap your head around what a professionalization effort actually means in the fitness industry. The first thing it has to come down to is more inclusivity in terms of imagery, messaging, and hiring. Now, when I say more inclusivity with regard to imagery, messaging, and hiring, what I'm mainly talking about is most of the ads that we put out have very fit people in those ads. Most of the messaging we put out there has to do with looking better and getting your beach bod and getting your summer 6-pack. And most of the people we hire are fit individuals. And we have for years as an industry hired very fit individuals with great bodies who wanted that summer 6-pack or wanted those perfect glutes. And while none of that on its face is bad, and actually on its face makes some kind of sense, you have to think broader when you're trying to think about how we can connect with the 80 to 85% of the American public that we currently don't connect with. One of the most fundamental evolutionary principles that exists is the desire to fit in with your tribe, to feel like you belong in a given place. It is ingrained in the deepest, most primitive parts of our brain, because if you feel like you belong, you feel like there is safety. So I would ask all of you as you're listening to this, if you're looking at ads for a fitness center, it could be internet-based ads, that could be somebody's website, could be a print ad, and you are a 45-year-old woman who is 50 pounds overweight, who's got 4 kids, and you look at everyone in that ad, and they're young, they're beautiful, they're fit, and they're exercising and look like they're enjoying it. You're looking at that ad as that 45-year-old woman saying, those people don't look anything like me. That place doesn't have anyone like me working out there. Why would I ever want to go there? Why would I want to put myself in this uncomfortable environment where nobody is like me? Again, this is not even something, I think, in many cases that is a conscious thought by people. It is this very subconscious, evolutionary, primitive survival thought that we have. But even if you don't want to go that metaphysical on thinking about this, on its most basic level, people want to go where they feel like other people are like them. And the advertising our industry has used over the years, the imagery we have used has been counter to that. We are choosing images of people that look fit. And because of that, we are getting people to come through our doors who are fit. If we want to start to attract that 80 to 85% of the public, we have to be willing to use imagery that is consistent with the way they look. I have a rule at my company. We don't use stock images. We use images of our real clients. So we have to start considering, if we want to attract a different population, we need to use different imagery, and that imagery needs to look like the population that we need to and we want to serve, that other 80 to 85%. Our messaging. So long our messaging has been wrapped up around body composition. So long. And that is such a reductionistic race to the bottom in terms of what a physical activity or fitness program provides somebody. All of us that know evidence-based exercise fully understand that weight loss or body composition improvement is a side effect of exercise. It's not a direct effect. The direct effects are things that improve physiological and psychological functioning. How do we shift our messaging to that? I know what some people might think. They might think, well, people exercise because they want to look better. That's why people exercise. It's an aesthetic thing. And while I understand people in our industry saying that, that's because they're within that 15 to 20% of the public that wants that. I'd submit to you the other 80 to 85% of the American public would like to look better, but what they care about is they care about feeling better. They care about functioning better. They care about their mental health. They see those people with those jacked, beautiful bodies, and they say, I'm never going to get to that point, but damn it, I want to feel better. I'd like to be able to get up out of a chair without being in as much pain. I'd like to be able to play with my grandkids. Starting to shift our messaging to the physical and mental health benefits of exercise not only is going to start to allow us to cast a much wider net, but more importantly, it's going to resonate with that 80 to 85% of the population that we do not serve. It's going to start to build trust with them. It's going to start to build rapport, build equity. That message resonating will actually get them to walk through our doors. And here's the best part about it. That is a promise that we can deliver on. Our industry for so many years has been built on so many flawed promises of improving body composition and getting your beach bod, because the number of people that actually achieve that are fractions of a percent, and the number of people that maintain it are even smaller fractions of a percent. But what I can absolutely guarantee to anyone that walks through our doors is if they stay even relatively consistent with exercise, they will improve their health, they will improve their well-being, they'll feel better, and they'll function better. And those immediate benefits become very, very reinforcing. They improve adherence, they improve compliance, and they improve retention. So more inclusive and broader messaging away from body composition towards the real and immediate benefits of physical activity and exercise. And lastly, hiring. We have to be willing to hire more diverse individuals. Diverse in terms of gender. We need more women, particularly in leadership positions in our industry. Diverse in terms of race and ethnicity. Our country is multi-ethnic, multiracial. But if you look at a lot of fitness centers, they tend to be predominantly Caucasian people. So more diverse in terms of race and ethnicity, but also diverse in terms of body shapes and body sizes. I think this is so important. People want to understand that the fitness professionals or the team members at a given fitness center understand what they're going through, maybe as someone that lives life in a larger body. And the best way to do that is to find people and hire them and make them critical parts of your team that do live their life in larger bodies, but live a healthy life in that larger body. So I really think we need to change our paradigm around imagery, messaging, and hiring. I'd like to take a quick break from today's episode to tell you more about one of our sponsors. As all of you are well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has been absolutely devastating for the fitness industry, with upwards of 1/3 of our clubs closing nationally on a permanent basis. One of the few stabilizing forces during this very tumultuous period of time has been IHRSA, the Global Trade Association for the Health and Fitness Industry. On my crusade to make fitness professionals part of our healthcare continuum, the work that IHRSA is doing is absolutely vital. They provide advocacy and lobbying support at both the federal and the state level. They support state alliances in many ways, and they also provide resources and best practices to club owners, operators, and individual fitness professionals. Indeed, if we are truly going to become part of the healthcare continuum, we must speak with one unified voice. We must have best practices that we implement, and we must come together as an industry to ensure the public, the medical community, and lawmakers hear our message loud and clear, that movement is medicine and it is essential. That is the work that IHRSA is doing. They've recently revamped their membership structure, allowing large clubs, small clubs, boutiques, and individual professionals to join the organization for an appropriate price that allows them to have access to all of these many great resources and allows us to unify and amplify our voice as an industry. For more information on the amazing work that IHRSA is doing, go to their website, IHRSA.org. That's IHRSA.org, IHRSA.org, to look in a little bit further into the work IHRSA is doing to unify our industry, to move us closer to being a part of that healthcare continuum. Now back to today's episode. And then moving into the second step towards professionalization is shifting to science-based claims. And it kind of goes back to a little bit of what I talked about in step one with the messaging, but our industry has been built for the most part on a bunch of unscientific claims. Particularly rapid weight loss and physique transformations and before and after photos and all these things that you think of the artifacts of the fitness industry of the 90s, those still exist to a great extent. So how do we actually use the evidence basis that exists out there for our claims? How do we articulate to people that by doing X, Y, and Z from an exercise perspective, you'll improve ABC from a mental health or ABC from a wellness perspective or whatever it might be? I think it's so important that we as quickly as we possibly can purge our industry of the non-evidence-based claims and focus on broad-based evidence-based claims around improvements in psychological and physical functioning. That's where the messaging needs to go. That's where the claims need to go, because it's what we can deliver on. Again, I can't promise someone, no matter how hard they try, because of all of the complex physiological factors and anatomical factors associated with body composition transformation, I can't ever promise anyone they are going to make a certain body composition transformation. But what I can unequivocally promise somebody is If they do a good, progressive, individualized, evidence-based exercise program, they will improve their mental health, they will improve their physical functioning, and they will live a more fulfilled life. They will be a healthier and more well individual. So we have to shift to evidence-based claims. Now, going right along with that, in the third step is we need people that can actually interpret, understand, and implement those evidence-based claims. And those are educated and certified fitness professionals. We must shift our approach towards training and credentialing in our industry. If we want to be part of healthcare, that needs to look like healthcare. And what that means is first and foremost, we need some type of accreditation at the academic level. And this is happening in parts of the country and with certain institutions. But I'll give you an analogy of nurses. If you go to nursing school at University of Michigan, you go to Texas, you go to USC, it is the same nursing curriculum at all three of those universities. And that allows physicians and the general public to know that nurses are educated uniformly. However, if you go to University of Michigan, Texas, and USC for exercise science or kinesiology, all those curriculums are different. It is a different program. So fundamentally, you're graduating people that have varying levels of knowledge and varying levels of skill. And that's not a great recipe for trust and equity with the medical community and with the general public. So we need accreditation and we need standards in our academic program. And this is a movement that's underway, but it needs to keep happening. For those of you that are listening that are in academia, how do we uniform our academic standards like other exercise professionals in healthcare have done before us? There's a template for this. Physical therapists have done it. Athletic trainers have done it. We just need to follow that same template in our industry if we want to achieve the healthcare status and the healthcare employment opportunities that PTs and athletic trainers have. And then to go a step further, it can't just be degree or certification. It has to be degree and certification. And we'll use the nursing analogy again. Somebody who goes through nursing school, they graduate, they get their BSN, and then they sit for their board exam. They become board certified. And this is exactly the same thing that we do with physical therapists, exactly what we do with athletic trainers. We have to do it in our field. So we need a hierarchy of certification that is almost like a board exam. And I don't exactly know how this looks, and I don't want to pick and choose sides in this conversation, but I think the American College of Sport Medicine is the obvious leader in this arena, and they can provide program accreditation. And after programmatic accreditation, they can help provide some type of credentialing exam. Again, I'm not saying the ACSM has to do it. I'm saying somebody has to do it. And as stakeholders in our industry, we need to advocate for that because it is the path. It is the path that athletic trainers and physical therapists followed before us. If we choose to follow that path, we will be looked at as part of the healthcare delivery system, much like they are. So we need programmatic accreditation. We need certification that acts as almost a board-based type of credentialing in our industry. And we also need a registry that exists to ensure that people maintain their credentials and that bad actors can be effectively kicked out. And this exists. This exists through something called CREP, the Coalition for the Registry of Exercise Professionals. In fact, I'm going to link this up on the show notes page. If you go to US Rep's website, you'll actually be able to see if you are certified through an organization that is affiliated with CREPs, that you're actually on that registry. And if you maintain your certification, you stay on that registry. Again, these are things that all of the exercise professions that are part of healthcare have. They're part of what the rest of healthcare has. We must have it. Next is cross-sector collaboration. Any professional industry gets outside of its silo. And our industry has decidedly siloed itself off, intentionally in some cases, unintentionally in others, from other industries. We have to think about how we collaborate across sectors with other physical activity stakeholders in the country. The reality is the different physical activity stakeholder groups, so as an example, physical education teachers, physical therapists, parks and recs departments, the medical community, insurers, all these various groups, we all have the same message. We want people to lead healthy, active lifestyles, but we're all saying it in our own silo. We're just in an echo chamber with ourselves. And if we don't come together and speak with an amplified and unified voice, it's going to greatly limit the impact that our message is going to have. And it's also going to send confounding messages to lawmakers, public health officials, and medical professionals about what we're all about. I'm part of an initiative here in Michigan called the Michigan Moves Coalition, and we have brought together the physical therapists, the physical educators, the people in parks and rec, some of the health insurers, the fitness club community. We've said, hey, how do we speak with one unified voice and one unified message to all the critical stakeholders in terms of the politicians, the public health officials, and the medical professionals, but also to the public in the state of Michigan to say, hey, we're all here to support you on your physical activity journey. And we all feed each other. I look at the physical educators and I say to them, thank you for training our members and our clients of tomorrow. I say to the physical therapist, thank you for fixing our members and clients of today. To the people in Parks and Rec, thank you for giving another venue, another on-ramp for people to be physically active. We all have to work together. The public health crisis that exists in this country around physical inactivity and the chronic lifestyle diseases that cause a myriad of problems with cardiometabolic health are so big and so massive that no one can solve it on its own. It takes a village. It takes a multidisciplinary team. We have to work together. We have to build bridges across sectors. Our enemy is not the Parks and Rec department. Our enemy is not the gym down the street. It's the couch. It's the remote control. It's hyper-palatable processed foods. It's fast food restaurants. It's all those things that make us unhealthy in our society. We are fighting against that enemy collectively as a group of stakeholders. And lastly, and you've heard me talk about this before, I can reference other episodes on this, I won't dive too deep into it, but as outcome measures, we must as an industry do what we have never done. And we've never done it, I think, partly because it's hard, but also partly because we've not produced them, is we must produce, collect, and report outcomes. If we want to be part of healthcare, we have to do the very thing that healthcare does and be outcome-oriented. Collect, produce, and report outcomes. And what unequivocally must happen is we must take our fitness outcome measures of cardiovascular fitness, measures of strength, measures of power, even measures of body composition. What I said earlier doesn't mean improving body composition is something we shouldn't be doing. It just shouldn't be the emphasis of what we do. We must take those fitness outcome metrics and we must tie them to health outcomes. So improvement in hemoglobin A1C, improvement in blood pressure, improvement in lipid profile, whatever the health outcome measure may be. And then we need to take that and we need to tie it to claims data. If we want to be considered an essential stakeholder in the healthcare delivery system in this country, we have to influence claims. We have to follow the money. That is the way anything gets done. By any objective measure, if you follow the money, you always find the answers by following it. And we know that we can influence healthcare economics on a very, very dramatic level. We know the costs that are associated with chronic cardiometabolic diseases. We know that we spend 90% of our healthcare dollars in this country on chronic lifestyle-related diseases. And keep in mind, in America, we spend $1 out of every $5 of our GDP on healthcare. That's more than twice any other industrialized nation on the planet. And 90% of that money is going towards chronic lifestyle-related diseases that physical activity and other lifestyle change can make an impact on. And we have to be able to quantify that impact. It is not just enough for us to say, well, we know exercising is good for you. We know it improves your mental health. We know it improves your physical health. But how and by how much? We have to answer that question. And we have the ability to answer that question if we work together in a very unified way. Again, it's collecting the outcome metrics, also making sure you have the evidence-based programs implemented by educated and certified professionals to produce those outcomes. Because if you're going to collect them, you better produce them. And on some level, I think our industry has always been a little apprehensive to collect outcomes because they're afraid we may not be producing them. Well, if you hire educated and certified professionals that know how to interpret the scientific evidence and implement evidence-based programs, that's not something you have to worry about. You collect the outcome metrics, you then tie them to health metrics, and then you tie them to claims data. And you have the payers, the insurers, the medical community, and the fitness community all in lockstep around lifestyle interventions, physical activity interventions that improve health and reduce cost. And the healthcare system right now, from an economic standpoint, is falling apart around us. This year, over 50% of hospitals systems in this country will lose money. The economic equation is upside down in healthcare. Costs are going up, reimbursements are going down. It is an unsustainable economic model, and we have the answer to it if we are willing to take the time to collect those answers and then provide those answers to the appropriate stakeholders. So that's a lot. And the path ahead is not easy, but it's the only path. That's the thing with this conversation, is that it's a non-conversation conversation. We have a choice. We are either viewed as an entertainment-based commodity whose primary market is ever diminishing because we're becoming older and less physically fit, or we become an industry. We make the hard choice and take the hard steps to become an industry that actually impacts public health, that actually has trust with lawmakers, with public health officials, with medical professionals, and with the 80 to 85% of people we currently don't serve. We have the capability to do it. I truly believe it. We have the desire to do it, the passion to do it, the people to do it. We have everything we need. We just have to commit to it. And I would ask all of you who are listening to this right now to make that commitment. Implement these steps towards professionalism and share them with other people in our industry, because we can do this, but we can only do this if we do this collectively. I hope this has been informative. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. You can check out the full article on our show notes page, wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 82. Please be on the lookout for next week's episode when it drops on Wednesday. And don't forget to subscribe through your favorite podcast platform. Until we chat again next week, please be well.